Good morning and welcome to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. This is the time of year when many people are thinking of or searching for the perfect gift. But when you really think about it, the best gift that any of us can give is the gift of life. This morning, our focus is on BloodCenter of Wisconsin, the only supplier of blood products to over 50 Wisconsin community hospitals. And we're going to start off focusing on the Wisconsin Donor Network and Wisconsin Tissue Bank. My first guests are Colleen McCarthy. She's the Executive Director of BloodCenter's Wisconsin Donor Network and Wisconsin Tissue Bank, and Dominque Johnson, who's here to share his story of how a heart transplant gave him a new lease on life. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. And as I said, Colleen, there are a lot of things that the BloodCenter of Wisconsin does to help people on a daily basis. So if you would, tell us more about what you do.
BloodCenter provides just an amazing array of services to patients in need. And what we do specifically for donor families is support them during their time of loss and offer the option of organ and tissue donation to them.
That's awesome. So when it comes to organ and tissue, more than 117,000 Americans currently wait for a life-saving organ transplant, and that's a lot to wrap your minds around. So it gives everybody at home an idea of how many people are in need. And every 13 seconds, a new name is actually added to the National Organ Waiting List. Explain how the Organ Donor Network is set up and who in fact can be a donor.
The need for organ donation is just tremendous. Despite advances in medicine and technology and even the increase in awareness for donation, that huge gap still exists between the number of patients waiting and the number of available organs for transplant. So what the Wisconsin Donor Network and Tissue Bank does is work with the hospitals within our service area, and anytime there's a potential organ or tissue donor within our service area, we go to the hospital, we meet with the families, the physicians, the nurses taking care of the patient, and we offer the option of donation.
Okay.
We sit with patients and families that are grieving and are going through just a tremendous loss at that time. We support them through that loss so that they can see that they have the option of organ donation.
Great. And we need to find out more about Dominque over there. You suffered from a congenital condition called cardiomyopathy.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to say. So if you would tell us about some of the things that you've gone through in leading up to a heart transplant.
I was born with it. I was born August 20, 1991. I was born with it, passing on from my father. So we knew about it right away after I was born. So that was kind of a good thing that we knew about it instead of finding out about it later, because anything could happen. So I didn't know what that was until I got older, because I was playing basketball in middle school, high school. Well, I never played in high school, because that's when Dr. Berger at Children's Hospital at the time told me that I couldn't play. It was devastating for me and my family because I really wanted to play so bad. So, I was still able to go out there and just pick up basketball. And, it was tough throughout my life having a heart transplant. But when I found out that I needed a heart, that was like the best day of my life, because I wanted to be healthy, and I wanted to live my life better. I still want to go out there and play basketball. And so my mom, my dad, and all my family kind of was scared about the situation. But I told them that, this is something that I want to go through, because I want to be happy, I want to be healthy and everything, So they kind of, they stuck with that through that 3 months in the hospital I had spent. So those 3 months kind of intense, but the way I took it was kind of pretty easy, just kind of entertaining my nurses and all the patients that was there. So those 3 months was I kind of enjoyed my time at the hospital. I know that sounds kind of strange because a lot of people don't believe me. but it was something I wanted to deal with, because like I said, I wanted to be happy, I wanted to be healthy.
And do all the things that you want to do with no restrictions whatsoever.
Right.
I can understand that, and it's interesting that he said that he knew early on that he had a heart issue, because we've heard stories in the news, and it's really sad, where there have been athletes on the floor playing basketball, and they have suffered heart attacks and died because they had this condition and had no idea, right?
Exactly. Dominque had just outstanding care at Children's Hospital, and they knew what his medical problem was, so they were able to support him until that heart was available.
And so waiting on a heart transplant, you've kind of explained that this is something you were ecstatic about. You should be happy about that, but what was it like for you knowing that things were going to change and you would be able to come off the sidelines and finally get back into the game and do the things you wanted to do?
It's the feeling I can't even describe because, you know, I mean, all those years that I had been through, you know, I mean, it was a lot of frustration that I was dealing with because, you know, I watched other people, like my friends in high school, you know, playing basketball, and I'm just sitting on the sideline, and it's just kind of like, you know, I wish I would have get out there and play because I really want to help, you know, win games and everything else. So, I mean, I didn't know what was going to happen after I graduated high school, but I knew that at some point that I was still going to play because that was still my dream. Yeah. And so I remember December 2012, that's when I started getting sick. And a lot of frustration I was dealing with. And I remember in my room one night, and I was just kind of frustrated, and I just kind of just prayed and talked to God about, you know, I wanted to play basketball and I wanted my heart. And so like 3 months later after that, you know, that's when Dr. Baker came in the room, said that, you know, you're going to get a new heart. And that's pretty much all I wanted to hear throughout my life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know it sounds scary, but I'm like, this is exactly what I was praying for, and it's coming.
That's part of why we have you here today, just to show people how important it is to kind of make a commitment to say they will be an organ donor to help save a life or help a young person like you be able to do all the things they want to do. And Colleen, is it always that fast to get an organ? He said it was, you know, a while he waited. A 3-month period you were waiting. Yeah. That's a happy story, right?
It is. You know, each organ has its own set of rules on how they're matched and how we find the right recipient for the right organ. And in general, patients who are the sickest are allocated organs first, but there's variations throughout the sharing system, and because there's such a tremendous need and not enough to meet the need of all those patients, the system is as fair as it can be. But some patients wait could be a number of days to several years. And so the challenge is keeping people healthy and strong enough during that wait list time so that they can receive a transplant eventually.
Okay, so when we talk about organs and what other organs can be donated besides hearts?
Lungs can be donated, liver, kidneys, pancreas. For tissue donation, that includes bones and skin grafts, all that can help patients who have had cancer or recovering from burns as well.
Wow. So the interesting thing when you talk about kidney transplants, African Americans make up 35% of the patients who are actually on a waiting list for kidney transplants, and they actually make up 13% of the population. So why do we see the numbers so high for African Americans needing kidneys?
We see African Americans waiting for kidneys based on some genetic disorders or even medical problems and histories. So the prevalence of hypertension, diabetes is higher in African Americans, and that can damage kidneys to the point of needing a transplant. So it's so critical for patients to understand their treatment options and to stay healthy, to stay off that waiting list.
Okay, that's good information, because that means you need more African Americans to sign up to be an organ donor. And how, in fact, does someone sign up to make a commitment to be an organ donor?
It's real easy to sign up to be an organ donor. You can do it at your local DMV, or you can go online at yesiwillwisconsin.com. But the most important thing is to talk to your family about it, because in the midst of a crisis and a loss, the family will remember those discussions and what did their loved one want.
With recent advances in medical technology, it's really interesting. Many more people, more than ever before, are actually donors, even those people who are 70 years and older. And I read that the oldest donor was almost 93 years old. How is this possible?
It is incredible. There really are very few rule-outs to be an organ donor, but there are so few patients that can actually become an organ donor. So everybody, no matter how old you are, what your health history is, we encourage you to sign up, because the need is so tremendous that there may be just the right patient out there to receive the organ.
And again, the register online address is yesiwillwisconsin.com, or like you said, you can go to the Department of Transportation Division of Motor Vehicles and renewing your license or ID. And we're still putting the little sticker on that lets people know that you are an organ donor. All right, Dominque, what would you say to people at home who are watching, who are thinking about it, but not real sure if that's something they want to do in becoming an organ donor? Why is it so important?
Well, I would say that, you know, you might want to think outside the box. You might want to think about your family. You know, you want to think about your friends in the future, things that you want to do, you know, along when, you know, ahead of yourself. So the way I took it, you know, I just kind of talked to God about it, you know, and I was committed. You got to be committed about what it is that you want to do. And then being in the hospital is the best thing for you to do in order to, you know, to go ahead of yourself. Then I would say that, you know, just kind of talk to God about it, you know, and just stay committed, because you just never know what you will get. And once you get that, and then you'll appreciate more once you get that gift.
Okay.
You know, so that's just kind of how I look at it. So that's what I would say, just talk to God about it, just think outside the box, and then stay committed. And because you just never know what you'll get, and you'll be appreciated once you get that.
Yeah, I like that. Think outside the box. And it's interesting, he said, you know, have a talk with God. And a lot of times when you think of some of the things that kind of halt people in becoming a donor, religion is always a question. So right now, Colleen, is a great time for us to dispel some of the myths that are out there, especially when it comes to religion. Many religions support donation, and one of the biggest myths is that the body will be disfigured or a person's funerals delayed, things of that nature, and that's just not true.
Correct. It is not true. And all major religions support donation, see it as just the ultimate gift and generosity to another human being. Donation does not affect a funeral, so families can have all of their choices for preparations and funerals still followed. We believe that all donors just need to be honored, and it is such an incredible gift, and so we take care of our donor families and our donors so that the families can have whatever funeral arrangements they choose.
Yeah, and it's also not true that doctors would just let you die so that someone can have your organs. That is never in the thought process, so that's something people shouldn't give thought as well.
Correct. We do hear that, and there is that fear, and I think that speaks to some health disparities as well within the African American community. There is reason to have fear. There's histories and there's stories, and so we have to reassure our community that donation is always with the best intention. The goal is to live, and so the physicians, the hospitals, they will treat a patient as long as they can until there's no other option, and only then is donation considered.
Yes, and a great example of the ultimate gift, the tragic story of the 5-year-old Layla Peterson. She was the little girl who was sitting on her grandfather's lap, and a bullet comes through the window and shoots her in the head. And her family, during that traumatic time, made a decision to donate her heart to help save the life of another child. So the thought of it gives me chill bumps. And so that is an example of how really during tragedy you can do something that brings light to a scenario that is, you know, sometimes really sad and hard to deal with, but to know you're giving life or helping someone else live a better life helps it all be a little better.
We hear from our donor families constantly that there is an incredible healing power to donation, and they may not feel it at that moment because it is just so devastating. But years out, people and families cling to that legacy that their loved one has left, and so it can do wonderful things, obviously, for recipients, but to the donor families to survive that grief, it's incredible as well.
I want to thank you both for being here and giving the information. And Dominque, thank you for sharing your story, and I'm glad you're back on the basketball court. Colleen McCarthy is the Executive Director of BloodCenter's Wisconsin Donor Network, Wisconsin Tissue Bank, and Dominque Johnson is a heart recipient who's now chasing his dreams thanks to organ donation. Keep in mind that more than 50 people in need can benefit from one person's decision to be an organ and tissue donor. When we return to Our Issues Milwaukee, we'll find out more about how you can give the gift of life by donating blood or by joining the Be the Match registry. We'll continue our conversation about BloodCenter of Wisconsin right after this.